It's February, and you know what that means. Tax season is here. Whether you say it out loud or not, you probably already have a sense of how the next few months are going to go. And it's familiar, it's predictable. You've been there, you've done that. Basically, you're going to have someone reach out to you who needs help really, really quickly. It's urgent from their point of view. And you're at capacity, you might hesitate, but you actually say yes. And this decision ends up turning into an additional Saturday you did not plan for. Plus, you tell yourself that you're going to revisit the pricing of what you're charging later on after things actually slow down. And in that moment, when you're busy at capacity, you've been running on empty for quite a while already, that those decisions actually make sense. So saying yes feels responsible. You're being helpful for somebody. You maybe are pushing through, and that feels like that is necessary in order to be able to get everything done by the deadline. And postponing anything around pricing and making any changes just feels practical at the moment. You're already at capacity. But I just want to say those moments, they kind of stack up and they end up impacting the entire season. Like I said, you're working longer hours, you're feeling stretched, undervalued, and things just don't change from one season to the next. But there's a reason why, and that's what I want to focus on. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution. And things that feel familiar aren't just habits. They're actually patterns that start off once, it seemed to work. So when something similar happens again, you actually have the same response. And over time, they become an unspoken rule. They're under the radar. It's not something that you did intentionally. But think about it. There are patterns and these unspoken rules that affect how you manage your tax season in your capacity. And those assumptions that you're making about how things ought to be, what you need to do, they are really making a difference more than you realize, and you have the capability of having a different response. So the tax season doesn't feel like a drag year in and year out. So think about it. You're at capacity, things are working, and you're not even questioning those decisions that you're making. They're like knee-jerk decisions because you are busy and stretched thin. You just want to move on. But under pressure, this is what happens. Your brain is looking for efficiency because you're already stressed out. It just wants to reduce the tension as quickly as possible. And the fastest decision is basically one that you made before. So reusing it because it worked out okay. That means that you go on autopilot when things are going on like that, when you're at capacity. And each of these decisions that you made, whether it's taking on a client when you're already busy, maybe giving up another Saturday, maybe even Saturday night, and thinking that you can't make any changes to your pricing midstream, they seem logical. And that's why this works. And you have these unspoken rules that start to stack up. But logic doesn't always take into account the long-term cost of your time, your energy, or the type of firm that you want to build. It's not thinking about that. It's just thinking about the moment and relieving pressure in the moment. So as a result of that, the impact is maybe pricing decisions. You're accepting clients that you wouldn't accept otherwise. And it also affects boundaries that you would like to have in place, but maybe you give up because it just seems easier. And what we want to look at is that these are not facts. Like I said, they're unspoken rules. They're to reduce tension, and they can be changed once you become aware of them. In fact, awareness is the first step, realizing that you even have them running in the background. So what you want to look at is, what does running your firm actually look like? And do you tell yourself that everybody else at this point that does something similar to you is having the same thing? They're doing the same thing as what you are. They're working long hours. They're saying yes to everybody. They're not making any changes midstream. and that at this point, doing anything differently just maybe even feels a little risky. Well, the consequences of continuing to go on autopilot like that, they tend to be hard to ignore because they slow your firm's growth. Revenue might even stay flat, although you're working more, and you suspect that maybe you're undercharging for your services, but a fee increase, it feels uncomfortable. And that's what happens when you have these unspoken rules that don't ever get examined. So we want to take something that has been quietly operating in the background year in, year out, every tax season, and we want to be able to bring it up to the surface to where you can see it. And then you can choose, does it still work for you? Do you want to keep it? Or maybe you want to make some changes so that it's a better fit for where you want to go. And this is what happens. Maybe you have a potential client and they see, we really, really need some help. Our last accountant dropped the ball and we are behind. And in your head, you're telling yourself, I don't have the capacity right now. This sounds really, really messy. So there's some red flags. But as you know, everybody needs help in February. So this client might not be a great fit for your firm, but you say yes. And the intention is you'll figure out how to be able to fit it in and what to charge later on. You just want to be able to move forward so you can get back to all the files that are waiting for your attention. So it's an assumption that you have, and that's why you're doing this and going with the flow of how things have always been, but it's never been questioned. So each year you tell yourself the same thing. You'll revisit pricing after tax season. You'll clean up your client list later. Think about all those clients that aren't a great fit for your firm. They actually add to your capacity because they're not responsive to your communications or giving you things that you need in a timely manner. And as a result of that, those hours add up because you're chasing information or you're waiting on information. But later on, to fix those things just never come because you stay busy or you move on or it feels risky and uncomfortable. So when I first started working on this with Rich, he was in the same situation. And by the time that we were talking, he realized he didn't want to have tax season be the same grind that it had been for the previous years in his firm. It was time to make a change. So we talked about some of the unspoken rules that he had, and we examined them, how they were shaping his firm's growth, his client mix, and his workload. And we made some adjustments. And the adjustment we made was primarily to his response when he went ahead and had someone reach out to him. So he was originally saying yes to everybody, just like most firm owners do at this time of year. But we just made that one shift in how he responded to the conversation. And instead of talking about just the tasks, the filing deadlines, the catch-up work, Rich started a change and focus on the outcomes that he offered. So here's how it would be. He would say something like, based on what you shared, my role is to give you clear financials that you can trust and some insights so that you're not reacting all year long. How does that interest you? And that's when the prospect would pause. They would do one of two things. They would either say, yes, that's great, exactly what I'm looking for, and want to move forward and hear more. Or they would say, you know what, that's not really what I need right now. And then they would move on. And that was okay. Both responses were acceptable because the client that moved forward valued his work, and the one that moved on probably would have drained his capacity and wouldn't have been that profitable or right fit for his firm. So Rich, when we were talking about this, he said that one of the hardest parts of making this change was being okay with letting a potential client walk away, even if that client wasn't a right fit for his firm. And all that changed was that one way that he responded when someone reached out to him. Instead of talking about the tasks and the work, he focused on the outcome and the investment. And some people, they said yes and moved forward. The ones who weren't a right fit, they went ahead and moved on. So I just want to give you another variation. When someone first reached out to him, he would maybe say, I can get you on board. We'll go ahead and sort out those details. We'll talk about the pricing once things get settled. But once we went ahead and continue working on this rule, then it would be based on what I hear moving forward. I want to make sure the level of support is aligned with what you need and how we work, because we don't want any surprises. We want to have complete transparency. And as a result of this, it started to put him in charge of his firm, especially during tax season, and how he moved forward. So this kind of shift didn't mean rebuilding his firm. It mainly started with him having awareness of where he had those unspoken rules, the knee-jerk reactions. And this is how you can start to become aware of your unspoken rules. First, notice. Think about the decisions that you make that are kind of on autopilot during tax season, and which ones feel like they're just knee-jerk reactions or that they're automated. It might be a quick yes. It might be charging a fee that you never ever questioned if it was the right fee or not, or maybe it was a boundary that you didn't hold. So think about, what is it that you do that's just an automatic response? You never think about it, but then it doesn't really help with your firm moving forward, or it makes tax season a real grind. After you notice it, then go ahead and write it down, because we want to take that from running in the background silently and make it visible. That way you have awareness. And once you have awareness, that's when you have the option to either move forward and do something differently, or keep it and just stick with the status quo. But now you're making a conscious decision. And then the third thing I want you to think about is just pick one out of those different beliefs that are on automatic, but they affect your tax season experience. Choose one rule that's now visible that you are ready to maybe go ahead and look at and do something a little bit differently. I realize you're busy right now. You're not fully at capacity yet, but you're starting to get busy, and you might not have time to rethink all of this. Totally makes sense to me. I get it. But we want to just have you look at one rule in order for you to have that clarity and start to make a little change, because a little change can still impact your tax season experience so much more than you realize. One little change can have a significant impact on your experience. So what would be the one rule that you would like to look at and maybe change how you respond to it, so that you don't end up having the burnout or the same tax season experience as you have year in and year out prior to this? Now, if you want to have some help with this, some assistance, you realize that there are some rules running in the background, they affected your pricing, the client mix maybe, or affected your workload and your firm growth, then that is exactly what I help firm owners accomplish. If that is interesting to you, you want to have a focused conversation, then go ahead and schedule a strategy session with me. Go to businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk to get things started. And then we can have a real focused conversation on how you can have a better outcome this tax season, where you're reducing your workload, but you're increasing your revenues, so that you're not taking a hole on your revenues, but you are not feeling burned out at the end of tax season. So once again, clarity puts you in charge. Let's take things that have been running in the background. Let's have awareness. So now you can choose how you want to make change and be intentional moving forward, because you deserve to be in charge of your firm, not have your firm be in charge of you. Tax season is something that needs to be sustainable, so that you can take care of your mental health in order to better take care of your clients. I look forward to having further conversations. Let me know how this resonated, what you took away, what you plan to do in order to make this a better tax season experience for you and your firm. Anyway, one rule, that's the starting point. I look forward to our next conversation. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing firm owners how to be able to double their revenue working half the time.